I came across the perfect channel name, but I'm gonna stick with what I have. So what on earth is the Hedonistic Treadmill, and why does it have me so fired up? Let's get into it. Hi again, my name is Mary. If you're new here, welcome. The purpose of this installment is to unpack the metaphor of the hedonistic treadmill. What? Please don't sign off yet, if that doesn't scare you away. So hedonism, you might recall from your college days, is a school of philosophy that centralizes the pursuit of pleasure, specifically has materialistic pleasure as a focal point. The hedonistic treadmill is actually a term used in psychology. The hedonistic treadmill basically states that our emotional states are relatively stable and not significantly impacted by sudden changes in fortune or achievement of long-term goals. So in other words, our state of happiness is relatively unimpacted by both of those things, even though you would expect that not to be the case. The way that helps me process my low-buy year and some of my struggles with my no-buy year is twofold. Number one, it supports my observation that what I buy does not have any kind of significant impact on my state of happiness beyond just a minor blip in dopamine release in my brain. That little subtle thrill when you come home and you see that little box on your front porch. Absolutely no long-term impact on my state of stress or happiness. And number two, it really does illustrate that chasing those little rushes of dopamine, looking at that system of chasing your dopamine releases every time you purchase something or achieve a minor goal with your no buy or your low buy year, that alone does not get you off that hedonistic treadmill. What we're really talking about, if you truly want to break that treadmill pattern, you really need to address your state of happiness. The purpose of this video is to go over my January and February budgets and give you an update on my low buy year. And one of my purchases is a bullet journal set. I purchased a book about the bullet journal by writer Carol, and it came with an actual bullet journal that I use to track my incredibly hectic. I will talk about the cost of all of these items, but in his book, which has a little bit of a self-help flair, but actually it's a system of organization, and as a teacher and a busy professional, I was very concerned with all of my various interests, all my various projects, and I was feeling overwhelmed and with having too many different tracking systems, and generally being my natural state is surrounding myself with that creative stew of chaos. However, if you ever actually would like to produce anything or get anything accomplished, or you have responsibilities, that system is a sure-fail system. If you're interested in the bullet journal and how it allows you to track all the various aspects of your incredibly hectic life, this book represents a place where you can actually go and go into a quiet place and make your plan for the day. Some of its virtues are that you do things like brain dumps, where you get all those things out of your head and onto paper so that then you can process them. If you're interested in the actual method, I will link below writer Carol's website, and you are welcome to browse around and see if it might be of interest to you. But basically, this is how I'm tracking all of my various projects. Teaching, all of my lesson planning stuff, all of my personal planning stuff, all of my personal project stuff is all contained in this running journal that basically depends on a notebook, a blank notebook, not a dated agenda. And there are various spreads that you can do. I don't spend a lot of time actually designing and decorating my spreads, but there are some things that I do religiously, which is, for instance, a monthly at a glance, a brain dump, and then the way your actual agenda days look is something like this. Just a bullet list with a simple system for crossing off what you did and migrating what you have not yet accomplished. And then you can have other various spreads to track your habits or to track your expenses. All right, so according to my bullet journal, I know exactly where I am on my $200 monthly budget for any of those kind of frivolous purchases for myself. Generally, we're talking cosmetics, skincare, that kind of thing. The kind of thing that I'm concerned in tracking, not just to set a series of obstacles in my path, but to help me understand what I spend and to help me minimize what I spend so I'm actually using what I purchase. Let's just look quickly at my purchases. I've already mentioned the Writer Carol bullet journal book and bullet journal, which I have been using. It is an excellent tool. More than a dopamine rush, this is an example of a purchase and a read that I feel fairly significantly impacted my flow. So it was not just a dopamine blip on my screen, a book that I purchased and sort of threw into a pile on the floor, because as an English teacher, I do have some of those that just take me time to cycle back to. This was much more, even though I'm not a big fan of self-help books, this one actually did help. It gave me a system that I can adapt to my own, that I can adapt to work with the way my brain works in order to layer all of the interesting products that I'm dipping my feet into, and not be in that situation where it's overwhelming. Everything has a place in my bullet journal, and I can find it because it's indexed. I can find it. I can cross-index across multiple volumes. So I'm absolutely thrilled with the longer-term impact of this purchase. Overall, with tax, it took $48.15 out of my $200 budget. The next purchase, I ordered two things from Chanel. One of them is a blush that I've had my eye on in the shade 02 Rose Bronze. I will swatch it for you. This is what it looks like in the pan. It is a gorgeous, lightly shimmery breath of rose bronze. Did I need another blush? No. Did I need another Chanel blush? No. My next video will be an inventory of my blush stash, and I'm just interested in inventorying all the components of my stash so that I truly understand when I am bored and browsing the internet how little I need a product. And that will have a longer term impact on helping me jump off that hedonistic treadmill than any kind of arbitrary rules about how much money I can spend or whether or not I'm allowing myself to buy something. All right, the second item I bought, Holy Grail status. This is one of the Stylo-Yeux, in other words, a waterproof eye pencil in the shade 926 Purple Choc. And I'm going to get this swatch real close to you. It's the kind of pencil that dials up, so that's handy. You're not having to sharpen it or stab your eye when you're tight lining with a cedar pencil liner. All right, and I'm going to try to tip my hand so you can see, in fact, that Purple Choc is the perfect name for this eyeliner. And it is basically a purple brown, but it has some mica or something in there that catches the light. And it actually does a very good job of sticking once it sets down. I never have any issue, as I do with Urban Decay pencils, with some of those reflective flakes falling down into my eyes. And when I look at my eyeliners, it does fill a unique niche, and it helps move me closer to that sense of my stash is complete. I don't need any more random purchases. So that will help me address that hedonistic treadmill. That order from Chanel set me back with tax $83.46, and then I just had one additional purchase, and that is, I could not resist. I will insert some footage of me unboxing this because truly because it's the first time I've ordered from Pat McGrath, and truly the packaging was absurd. If I can find that footage, I will insert it. I came up to my step and saw this black plastic, what looked like rickrack, if you're familiar with that trim term. It's a clothing trim that's kind of a thick ribbon zigzag shape. It looked like black plastic rickrack had exploded out of this box. So the little plastic worms were a good indicator of what was sitting on my front stoop. I've heard people speak of these before, so as soon as I saw this box, I knew who it was from. And I just want to let you know, although they're absurd and probably do nothing in terms of protecting eyeshadow palettes from the potential hazards of shipping, they are really not that bad to clean up, but they are plastic. Why are we still packing with plastic? It is crazy. We know what it does to the environment. We know there are microplastics embedded in Arctic ice. This stuff does not decay. I feel a little soiled ordering from Pat McGrath. Last month, Pat McGrath had a massive, and this sale might still be on, she had deeply discounted her 6-pan platinum bronze Mothership Subliminal palette. It's actually a fairly balanced palette between warm and cool. Upper left is Platinize, in the middle, in the upper row is Smoke and Mirrors, to the right is Telepathic Taupe, bottom row, on the left, Deep Velvet, Ritualistic, and Sextrovert. Platinize, Smoke and Mirrors, Telepathic Taupe, Deep Velvet, Ritualistic, and Sextrovert. So gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous palette. I love these bronzy taupes, and bronzes are definitely in my wheelhouse for the quality of the palette. And since I had already had my eye on it over the past year and a half, that was just too attractive a deal to pass up. So that concludes my purchases for January, with the exception, because of my profession, I am allowing myself to purchase books. I did pick up a wonderful, wonderful, highly recommended read. If you're into mythology, Madeline Miller's Circe is not to be missed. She's not only a beautiful writer, she received a Bachelor of Arts and a Master of Arts in the classics at Brown University, so she truly knows her mythology. Circe was the daughter of the Titan Helios and a nymph, and basically grew up as an odd child with her own, eventually comes into her own powers, and just gorgeous, gorgeous retelling with a slightly feminist perspective of some of the the Greek mythology that you're already likely familiar with, including encounters with Daedalus and Odysseus and Telemachus. So just absolutely did not want this one to end. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. We are now on to my February budget. We are just about at the end of the month, so I feel this is not too premature. I did purchase from Victoria Beckham. I got one of the smoky eye bricks. I decided to purchase Tuxedo because, again, it's a slightly more cool tone palette, which is underrepresented in my stash. So it is gorgeous. It is gorgeous. At first, I was going to pass on this because of the way the colors are not separated, but once I started using it and understood how you can use this palette across the line, so to speak, and create your own blend, that's what I have been doing. I love it. Beautifully packaged. And although I was just talking about my Chanel liner filling a niche. I did purchase one of Victoria Beckham's satin kajal eyeliners in the shade. It is slightly shimmery without the particles that are in the Chanel, but equally glorious. And I actually like how it seems to have a couple different tones going on in that liner. Love it. It's super soft, but once it sets down, it really locks down. So does not budge. Very much enjoying this. This is the kind that you have to sharpen. So much thought into packaging. The lid, although it feels a little wobbly and loose, actually has a little inner seal inside, and then it also has a smudge stick on the back. I will just quickly, it does have a longer blending time than the Chanel, but I do find that even though it has a longer working time, it does eventually set down. The final purchase from Victoria Beckham was one of her lid lusters in onyx. Again, you can see the beautiful tortoiseshell packaging. It is slimmer than the Chanel. This reminds me more in texture and substance of the Chantecaille single eyeshadows that came out in the last 6 months or so. It does have a little stopper that fits across the top, and this is super, super shimmery. More of a sparkly topper than a shadow. Gorgeous. This one does have a little bit of fallout. I would recommend using some kind of lid primer if you're interested in a product like this, which I also do when I'm using I do have one of the Chantecaille single eye. I do need to use a lid primer with that shadow as well. The total spent at Victoria Beckham was $116. I found it necessary to replace my Lancome Sill Booster. I purchased 2 things, and because I had points, my total was $15.80. So hyaluronic acid by The Ordinary was my second purchase at Ulta. The final purchase for February is I decided to subscribe to Sips By, which I had never heard of until I watched another newish YouTuber, Shanrel Stash. I will link her channel below. Highly recommend you head over there. She's charming. She has a daughter who sometimes she does unboxings with, and her daughter is just absolutely elven. Just a charming little sprite. So, and I've always been a big tea fan. I've recently done a series of declutters in my tea drawer, and rather than purchasing large amounts, if you go onto the Sips By website, they have a very complete survey that you fill out, and they will then match you with a series of teas that are paired with your interests. And I've got one of them in my kitchen, so I'm going to have to insert footage of that one that I'm actually moving through now. But for $15.80 a month, you get 4 different teas. You can choose loose leaf or bag. Mine sort of end up herbal/green. Tea Spa is the one that I decided to rip into first. It's a green tea blended with toasted rice, coriander, and jasmine, and I'm a big fan of jasmine teas. So this is the note that comes on the little personalized card. 1 teaspoon per 8 ounces of water, 212. They give you brewing and steeping instructions. It's low in caffeine, and they also include a discount code if you decide you love the tea and would like to purchase it in larger quantities from the direct seller. So this is almost like a curated tea box. And at 20% off, the codes are significant. If you truly find one that you adore, it's valuable. All right, next on the card is Calm Sips by Healthy Teas. And I can tell you right now, just looking through the little window, that this blend of lavender and chamomile is an herbal blend. Both of those have calming properties, and just for unwinding at the end of the day, that really serves a functional purpose for me. It just takes the edge off, Gets me ready for sleepy time, and I love it. While I've not tasted this one, I'm very familiar with making my own blend of chamomile and lavender. I'm gonna guesstimate this is 20 servings. So if you're getting 20 servings of 4 different teas, then the $15 I think is money well spent. Just for as long as you're interested in trying a variety. I do prefer, instead of jumping around a lot, I do anticipate sticking with the subscription probably for 3 or 4 months for that broad exposure before I go through the process of narrowing it down. All right, 2 additional teas are, this is a charming little tin. Not sure how sustainable that is, but this is Citizen Tea Snow Dragon, and Snow Dragon is a white tea, low caffeine, named after the fine silvery hairs that cover the leaves in a white coat. I'm happy to try that one out. Bitico is a Colombian green tea. So just as wine and even flour, if you're an artisan bread baker, each of those ingredients is known for sort of having very distinct flavor profiles based on the region where it's grown. So the term for that is terroir. So I'm very happy to try a green tea from Colombia. Colombian coffee is among my favorite. This is low caffeine, and the leaves are grown in rich volcanic soil, nourished with spring water next to a thriving rainforest in the mist-capped Andes. Lots of sales going on there, but again, because I do enjoy Colombian coffee, and I am very interested in terroir and the flavors of a region and how it impacts the food. I'm actually quite happy with this. As a final note, they do send it, if you purchase the loose leaf teas, they do send it with little disposable tea sachets. I generally use a tea strainer, not a tea ball, but a little strainer that fits down in the cup. So that total damage in February was a little higher than March. I am not carrying over any balance on my budget. I feel that's important. I'm not able to squirrel away extra money. It's just a bonus hanging on to my money. And I did that with intent because I just don't feel that I need to spend over $200 on something, on frivolous, on relatively surface purchases in any given month. Total for February came in at $147.60. If there's an update on Saturday, I will let you know, but essentially I saved on my budget $52.40. So I'm happy to know that. I'm happy to know that the budget I've set for myself sort of has enough wiggle room to absorb, for instance, if I need a skincare product on any given month, for instance, in other words, if it's a Curology month and I am still getting little flares, little hormonal flares, but it's good to know if I want to try something else in my skincare range. I have some wiggle room in that budget to do so. Thank you so much for joining me. If this is your first time here and you enjoyed the content, consider hitting that subscribe button. Leave me a comment with your thoughts below, and please do check out Chanrel's. I was a little slow on my updates over the past couple of weeks. Life does that to us sometimes. I do have a conference coming up next week, but things will stabilize. Perhaps my goal of 2 videos a week was never realistic, but I am enjoying posting on a more regular basis, and my next video in the works is surveying some of my individual categories, setting up a starting point so I can step off that hedonistic treadmill. Thank you again for spending some time with me. Ciao.